last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Without further ado, let's welcome Alicia to the show. Alicia!
Oh, it's always so good to see you. I was so excited. For those listening, I was actually one of your first podcast guests way back when you started.
Every time I'm asking the land people, what's working marketing-wise, direct mail.
You've got to have your data match your marketing. And you've got to realize that markets all go in cycles. What you sent in 2021 is not going to be the same thing that you should be sending today. And here's why. Market message match. You need to make sure that what you're marketing out and the message that you're sending matches where your audience is at.
This is fantastic.
Most sellers are driven by two things that you and I know of: money and time. Now, depending on if it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, those two things are going to mean different things at different points in time to that audience.
When you talk about omnipresence, you're talking all about having that brand awareness, putting a face to the business, and having credibility with reviews.
We are not in the business of real estate, people. We're in the business of relationships. Real estate just happens to be the thing that we are transacting.
What do you look for when hiring a virtual assistant or assistant period?
Hire for attitude, teach for skill. Attitude is everything. If you've got someone with the same values aligned to your organization, the right attitude in terms of their approach to their work, really get a sense of who they are and how they show up, because you can't teach that stuff.
Boom. We're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much for coming on.
Can't wait to see you in a few weeks where I'll wrap my arms around you for a big hug.
Exactly. I can't wait. Aren't we just having a lot of fun on the Al Nicoletti Show? I love seeing the recaps every week, all the guests that are on. And last week was a great episode with Alicia Jarrett, the Aussie that is doing the deals virtually all over land, getting into marketing. She talked about the 5Ds and really what you need to know and what you're really missing out on when it comes to marketing and doing digital marketing out there. And you got to follow that episode and check us out on all the social platforms, on YouTube, Facebook, you name it. And by the way, if you're really enjoying an episode or you've watched an episode and you really want to share it, please feel free. Share the episode on Facebook, share the link to your family, friends, anybody that you think can get value from it. And that's the idea, is that we want to help the community. We want to provide that value and be able to share it to everybody. So share it out there, feel free. And we are going to put the QR code up for the link tree. You can catch all the content right there. And tonight is going to be another great guest, Brandon Bateman from the Bateman Collective. This guy is super smart and very knowledgeable when it comes to inbound marketing. One of the topics I've been waiting to talk about for a while. It's a very interesting niche, and it's a very creative way on how you can drive leads into your business where people are trying to find you for what you do. It's going to be fascinating. I hope you enjoy it. And I got to say, for opening thoughts tonight, we got to talk a little bit about probate. We haven't talked about probate, and I don't even know ever on an opening thought. A lot of people out there are trying to find deals, probate leads. They're trying to get more, whether the market's hot, cold. And, some recent feedback I've had from some people is, they're trying to do some different marketing strategies, trying to do different types of outreach. And, maybe they're trying to they're getting some deals here and there. The probate market is on fire right now. In the last 2 weeks, I've seen more probates than in the last 2 months. Things are really on fire. And really, I've talked about it at the RIAs. I've talked about it at the meetups, talked about it on the stages. When you're trying to get into probate or leads and you're trying to get these deals, focus on the distressed leads. That's where the money hits are, right? The tax delinquent, the foreclosure list pendants, the code violation, the water utilities, things like that. And of course, there's the outbound, and Brandon's going to talk about the inbound, but the leads are there. It is your systems that you have to refine. It is what you're tapping into, the way that you're skip tracing, the way that you're trying to find people, you have to refine. They're there. And I just want to let you all know that the market's on fire for probate right now. It's never been better, and it's going to keep getting better. So I'm going to leave that right there. And I hope you guys are finding deals. Tonight we got a banger. I got my pen ready. I got the paper ready. I know Mike's back here ready on the set. So let's rock this thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate, and always bring in the best in the game, whatever market they're in, whatever niche they're doing, whether they're in the marketing business, whether they're in the real estate, whether it's something adjacent to real estate, we will always provide you the best content and the best guests that are out there on how you can take your company to the next level. On my show tonight, I got the man, Brandon Bateman from the Bateman Collective. This is going to be great. And without further ado, let's welcome him to the show. What's up, man?
Hey Al, great to see you. I have to say, you bring the energy on a level that I just don't know that I can.
Thanks, man. I was on a call today and somebody was like, what's with that energy? And I was like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm like this at 9 o'clock at night. I don't think he believed me.
Yeah. Yeah, for anybody watching that doesn't know Al personally, that's thinking like, oh, maybe this is just like some type of like show that he puts on, and maybe that's not who he actually is. Like I can vouch for Al that this is just who he is. So
this is me, man.
I appreciate it. It's great. It's different from me. Respected.
I love it. I love it. I love that you're on. This is going to be a great topic. I'm excited to talk about inbound marketing. It's very niched out. It's something that a lot of people, I think, will have questions on. And everybody knows if you have questions for Brandon as he gets going in this, drop it. We'll ask it towards the end. But Brandon, we got to start with inbound, outbound marketing, right? Let's start with the big picture. Like, what is the difference between the two?
Yeah, great question. And honestly, I get asked this a lot, and it's kind of similar across a lot of different industries. And I guess I'll give you like a little bit of a framework that I think of when I think of this. So, inbound versus outbound, you already said it. So just picture you got this scale. Outbound's like way over here, inbound's way over here. And a lot of people say like a marketing channel, it's inbound or it's outbound. It's not. It's not quite that black and white, right? There's sort of everything in between. So just to give you an example of how I see this, you start with really outbound. You're going to start with like door knocking, for example. That's like as outbound as you can be, and then you go into like cold calling, and then you can go to like texting or something that's slightly more inbound, and then somewhere in the middle, that's where you're going to have like Facebook ads, direct mail, TV advertising, radio. Those are what I call semi-inbound channels. And the reason I call them semi-inbound channels is because you're still going to the person first with your advertisement. They didn't go into their mailbox looking for a postcard from somebody who wants to buy their house. They went looking for their mail, and then there you were, right? So you interrupted them still. But still they're going to call you, right? It's not like you're calling them and they're like, who are you? Like they picked up the phone, they called you. And then, we talk about some of the channels that we manage that people get pretty excited about because they're the most inbound, fully inbound channels, like Google pay-per-click marketing, SEO. And that's where, you have people actually hunting you down, trying to find you. So the general relationship between these things, a lot of people say like outbound's good, inbound's good, whatever the case is. What I can generally tell you is that as you move from outbound to inbound, there's a few things that happen. Like number one, your lead close rates will increase. The more inbound a lead is, generally the better quality that lead is. That generally holds true. So what does an increased close rate mean? Well, if you're looking at like you're managing the leads, it means you can manage more deals, essentially. If you're looking at it from like a team perspective, that means that altogether you're gonna have to spend less money on your team to get deals done. You're gonna have less people per the number of deals that you do. You're gonna have less operational complexity, et cetera. The other thing that happens though, as you move from outbound to inbound, is usually the cost per deal increases across those channels. Like your cost per deal on like door knocking, would be like really low. If you put like, there's a lot of effort in there, right? So when I think like, when people ask me like what channels right for different people, I'd say like, well, it sort of depends on where you're at, right? Like if I'm just starting a business and I don't have that much capital and I have a lot of time, but I don't have that much money, I'm thinking outbound. But once you start to have more money and you have less time, that's where people start to shift more and more towards inbound channels. And if you're looking at a well-running business, generally they're going to have a mix of both. And anyways, sorry for like being on the soapbox here. One last thing I will say, like on the comparison between these, is referring to that cost per deal increase that happens as you go more inbound. I recently analyzed a few P&Ls from different investors, some of which were like very heavily outbound, some of which were very heavily inbound. And what kind of net profit margins are they dealing with? And what kind of marketing return on investment are they dealing with? And what I found was really fascinating is the return on the net margins were actually pretty similar across all the companies I looked at. And the ones that did mostly outbound marketing, on the P&L, the marketing expense was small. The operational expense was large.
Hmm.
They had a lot of heads, a lot of overhead. If you look at the more inbound driven companies, the marketing expense was larger, the marketing return on investment smaller, yet the company still maintained a healthy net margin at the end of the day because operational expenses were smaller, which I thought was super fascinating. So just when you're thinking about like inbound, outbound marketing, I think it's a great framework to think through it on is like which, do you want to have your marketing expense or do you want to have your operational expense? Do you want to, use your money towards your favor or do you want to use your time towards your favor to getting deals?
Yeah, and for a lot of people that aren't maybe seeing what the inbound is. So like Brandon's saying, the outbound, like cold call, direct mail, things that you're doing like the door knocking, anything out, you're doing the outreach. That inbound is when you're doing the Facebook ads, the Google PPC, and people
Mhm.
are getting in touch with you. So they have a need for whatever that service is that you're providing to them, right? When you're advertising, they have an issue and they're coming to you. And so what's so great about that, Brandon, is like you said, the quality of leads. The quality of leads just jump up, right? Because of and you'll dive in a little bit this with like maybe the keywords and kind of how you phrase it. But it's
Mhm.
because they're looking for something specifically in the search terms and then your ad pops up and then they're clicking it and
Mhm.
they're sending you a message, right? So the quality is higher and then the close rates, it's because they have that need, they want it and they got to get it done as opposed to the outbound where this is the first time somebody's reached out. How did you get my contact? And so maybe they're thinking about like what do we really do here? Maybe there's not a motivation.
100%. Yeah, it's like a lot of it's actually one of the biggest mistakes that our clients make when they shift from outbound marketing to inbound marketing is they try to qualify the leads really heavily, even with the inbound marketing. And the point is like they're qualified. Like you don't have to qualify as much. Like, do you have a house to sell? And are you willing to talk to me about it? Like that's the qualification. And it's a completely different conversation when someone calls you. It's totally different sales conversation because the structure of like the power of the conversation is completely different.
Yeah. Let's talk about this before we get into some of the misconceptions, some crazy story too that you're going to share. Like what on a surface level does an inbound marketing thing look like? The Google PPC, maybe setting up the landing page, just like an overview, doesn't have to be super deep.
Yeah, let me try to like distill this simple, and we'll simplify to just PPC. As a company, we do few marketing channels. PPC is definitely the most popular, so I want to like I'd rather go deep in one than like spread everywhere.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about PPC, this is what happens. So PPC stands for pay per click marketing. It's generally referring to search engine marketing, and that's going to be like let's just say you pull out your Google right now, you search for something if you search anything remotely commercial, chances are there's going to be some ads that pop up at the top that are basically just like the normal like results on Google, but it says ad next to it. And by the way, some people don't even realize that those exist on Google, especially a lot of motivated sellers, because like it used to be once upon a time they like highlighted them with all the yellow so you could see exactly where the ads are. And Google's just like every update they just make it like harder and harder to tell the difference between the ads and just the normal results. So usually you have these ads pop up at the top, and those are PPC ads. So what happens is if you click on that ad, then it charges that company money for you clicking on that ad. So let's just say I search "we buy houses" on Google or something like that, and then an ad pops up. That could be an ad for your company. I click on that ad. What's going to happen is it's going to take me to a website, or more commonly something we call a landing page, which is like like a little mini website that has less information on it, specifically designed for this purpose. And then usually there's going to be some sort of call to action there. And the goal is to get me to quote unquote convert, which means that I'm going to turn into a lead. I'm going to call like a phone number on there. I'm going to fill out a form submission, something like that. So that's kind of like the basic flow of what happens here. Now the details, there's a lot of details, right? For how it happens, but like the core of it is that people every day are searching things on Google. And what's crazy, like in this industry, we're always focused on like, well, what kind of pain point do they have? Like, are they getting divorced, or are they like? I know you're huge on probate, right? So probate means pretty likely to sell a house, and like all those things, super good, right? We talk about like demographics and stuff like that. The fact of the matter is, what somebody types into Google is more predictive of their future behavior than almost any other data point you could ever have. Like if somebody searches "we buy houses," the chances of them being a motivated seller that's going to sell their house soon are extremely, extremely high. That's why it's like a whole different form of targeting. There's like demographic targeting, there's psychographic targeting, and all these different lists and stuff. And then this is what's called intent-based targeting, where it's targeting based on what people are thinking in their minds and how they like translate that into Google. And it's incredibly, incredibly predictive of their behavior, which is why this is such an exciting channel.
Yeah, you nailed it right there with the intention, right? There's intentional marketing when it comes to this. And people are looking up that specific need at that right moment, right? Typing it in the Google search bar, and then your ad pops up. And like you said, a lot of people don't realize like what Google PPC is. You know, if you typed, best places to go when you visit a city, right? Like if you're visiting Jacksonville, and all of a sudden, like all these little things come up, and you think, oh well, it's on the first page. No, they're pay per click. Like people paid to have that go right to the top. So it's a fascinating channel, and I'm fascinated by all this. So Brandon, what would you say? Where are people going wrong with the inbound marketing channels? Like a lot of people can start it up. They can get it set up through Google, get it set up through a service provider like you, get the landing page. And it sounds great, right? But there's a lot more to it. So where do people go wrong with this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and honestly, sometimes it feels like everybody just finds their own unique path to screwing it up somehow, right? But this is important stuff, right? Because like your marketing dollars, that's what generates your revenue in your business, and there's definitely some common threads that we see across this. One of the things strategically that I'll speak to first, and let me define what I mean when I say strategic. Like I think a lot of times we talk about like, is it better to do A or to do B? When it comes to strategic things, those are usually things where it's like, well, sometimes you might want to do A and sometimes you might want to do B. And the real experience comes from knowing when to do each. And one of those things that's really, really hard in this industry that generally people just have a hard time with is location targeting. And I'll explain why it's so difficult. Because you just go work with like some marketing agency there. They've never done location targeting beyond just asking their client, hey, where do you want us to target? And then the person says, well, Florida. And then you target Florida, right? It's like that simple. Or like if you're an e-commerce business, you're just like, well, I don't know, the United States. And sure, we'll target the United States. It doesn't matter that much. In this industry, though, the location that you target is the product because you're going to buy that house. So it's so important and it's so nuanced. So there's just a few little things juggling in the air when it comes to location targeting with PPC that's just different from other channels. Like let's just say I really want to like nail direct mail in one zip code. I can do that. Nobody's stopping me from doing that. If I'm going to go run a PPC campaign in one zip code, I'm going to pay like $3,000 per lead, and it's not going to work. So like rule number one is that the wider you go in your locations, the cheaper your cost per lead will be. And that's not just because you're like targeting, like a lot of people think, well, yeah, if I do Orlando plus 20 miles, then I'm going to get, more expensive leads than Orlando plus 50 miles because they're more rural if it's plus 50 miles. But yes, that could be true, but it's also that like even targeting equally quality areas, if you target more of them, you get a cheaper cost because there's more inventory. And when inventory is really limited, it drives up cost. It's exactly how it works with PPC. Picture it like I'm going to an auction and there's going to be like 100 clicks sold that day at the auction. If like how much am I going to have to bid if I want 50 of those clicks versus if there's going to be like 1 million clicks sold at the auction and I still want 50 clicks, like do I have to be the competitive bidder? Not really. I can basically lowball Google in that kind of scenario. So that's the first relationship here, is that the wider we go geographically, the cheaper the cost per lead will get. Any questions about that before I talk about like where that will bite you in the butt?
Well, no, and I'm glad you brought this up because I didn't know about this until a couple months ago. When
Mhm.
you do the inbound marketing, like you pick Florida, thinking, oh yeah, you target all of Florida, you can get things in the Panhandle, the South Florida, and then I found out that you can like pick just one market. So if you really wanted to just move everything to like Tampa, you can just plump all your money right into the Tampa market. And I was amazed by that because I'm thinking, well, wait a second, like you can just go straight there and avoid everything else that's around. But like you said, the cost just goes up because now you're just going in that one saturated market. I didn't know that the cost was going to go up like that, but that does make sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's true kind of all the time. Like people ask, like, well, when does that stop being true? Well, our clients that target 200 markets get cheaper leads than our clients that target 50 markets. Like it always gets cheaper as you go wider. So, but that doesn't mean that's always the right move. So because of that, you'll find people out there who just even target like the entire United States. And I've seen people fall on their face doing that because then they end up getting like all these leads in the middle of nowhere where they can't find a buyer and it's just not a quality property to deal with. Where you could, it's like ARV is 10 grand and it needs 20 grand worth of work. And that's just not a deal, even if you could get it for free. Like, so you have those kinds of situations. Or you find a deal at like 50% of ARV and it's a smoking deal, but there's one buyer in the town and that person doesn't want it. Right.
Right.
So you run into issues with that kind of stuff, right? So we have this fine balance of like going as wide as we can. It's kind of like the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Like
Yeah.
I know who I'm talking to here. So like I say the same thing with locations. Like you need the right locations, all of the right locations, none of the wrong locations, or nothing but the right locations. So what I mean by that is if you can target like all of Florida, yes, do it. But what you have to think is like, okay, I'm targeting all of Florida, but can I do deals in Georgia? Can I do deals in North Carolina? And if the answer is yes, then you're not targeting enough. But then at the same point, if you don't want to do a deal in the middle of nowhere, Palatka, Florida, then don't target it because you're going to get leads from there. Because what happens actually with PPC is your ad spend will naturally flow to the least competitive amongst the areas that you're targeting. And the reason that that happens is because Google likes to optimize. Like you're going to tell Google, like I want as many leads as I could possibly get, and Google's going to say, okay, great, I found some of these areas here where nobody else wants the leads, so I can actually get them pretty cheap for you. I'll get you all the leads from that area, and then you'll get as many leads as possible, which is exactly what you wanted, right? So you run into those kinds of issues too. So that's why you have to make sure, again, you target the right locations, all of the right locations, none of the wrong locations. Because if you have, like, people think like, oh, I targeted 10 areas, yeah, one of them is not good, but 9 of them are good. The risk you run is that 50% of your budget gets spent in the one that's not good because your competition is savvy enough to be avoiding that area. So it's this fine balance of like, we want to be as many places as we can, but if we have any holes in that bucket, we run the risk of like the little area with just a little bit of population wasting a lot of our budget. So you have to be really careful about how you do it. Does that make sense?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's what Google would do. That they would like
Mhm.
trade, like basically you're getting the leads from the least popular area. So all of a sudden you're getting all these leads, but you're like, why? Like, oh, I pumped all this money in. Like, what's this? And it's coming from not the areas that maybe you want, but from the areas that aren't populated enough. That's crazy. I didn't even realize that. This is valuable. I mean, I'm learning this right now. Um, so keep going because like, what other misconceptions are we missing out on with PVC? Like, because I feel like people just do it and then like they try it for 3 months, 4 months, and they get frustrated. They're like, I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting like, why is it not like I'm converting right? Do I not have the team set up? Are we not doing the right AdWords? Are we not pumping enough ad spend in this? There's a lot of frustrations that come with it. So like, what are some other things we're missing on, even though we've got it all set up? I'm 4 months in and I'm still not getting it right, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And there's, like I said, there's tons and tons of things. Um, and one way that I could summarize one of them is that people focus too much on leads and not enough on deals. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So it's really common that people just think of PPC like it is a whole. Like you look at people's marketing metrics and they're just like, this is what PPC gave me, and they never go like deeper than that. They assume it's just like some pay per lead company where it's just like, you get what you get. You just pay for it because they just don't understand it, right? That's the equivalent of like I'm sending direct mail to 5 different lists, and with 2 different postcards, and I don't even look at like which one's working for me. PPC goes deep. Like most of our clients have not just a few search terms, but thousands and thousands of search terms that are triggering their ads. And we most often have dozens and dozens of ads that are showing, and we have multiple versions of a landing page that are showing in response to those ads in all these different things, right? So like if you're doing PPC, right, you're doing a lot of testing, and you don't want to look at it on a whole. You want to look at like what's working, because even if I look at a 10x return on an account, which a lot of people would say like this is a fantastic return, I still look at it, I'm like, there's got to be a way to make it 20x. You know, what in this account is performing at 20x? Let me focus on those things. So the overall concept here, though, is that we focus too much on leads, not enough on deals. This is like the common disconnect. So marketing agency doesn't know what's happening in the sales team, right? So marketing agency just says, well, the KPI that you have for us is that you want leads, so we're going to focus on what gets us leads. Sales team focuses on, I want these leads to turn into deals. Nobody focuses on which specific marketing activities drove which specific type of lead, which drove which specific type of deal. So there's this complete disconnect between sales and marketing. So, and it happens even beyond this. I'll explain like some basics of Google's algorithm and how it functions.
That's a lot. That's a lot of trial and error too. I mean, that could take a couple months before you really get that rhythm of what market is reacting to what marketing method, or maybe what landing page is sticking in a certain area, right? Like maybe the more professional landing page is really sticking with the South Florida area, but you know, some of the little graphics and pixelated kind of websites are sticking to the North Florida area. I don't know. It's like you have to like test it out and see what happens, and so it can take a while, but you got to have the patience for it, of course.
Yes, that's it's almost like, let's revisit in a second. Like let's talk about patience, because I might blow your mind about like how much patience it can take for like any marketing channel in this industry to work. So we could talk about that, but you're totally right. And what we are, I define this industry as what I would call a data sparse industry. So what is a data sparse industry? It's an industry where the total number of actions that you care about happening on a monthly basis is a small number of actions. Like let's just say I'm an e-commerce store and I sell a $30 product. How many customers am I going to have each month for me to make $1 million a month in revenue? I'm going to have a lot. Let's just say I'm wholesaling houses and I make 20 grand on each. How many customers? It's going to be a lot less. So what that means is you have less data points, which means you need more time to gather data than you think. And it makes this testing really difficult. The other part where people screw up here is Google cares about the feedback that you give it too. So let me see if I can explain this in a way that doesn't make everybody fear for their life with privacy restrictions. Google has a lot of data about people, like more data than we think it has. In fact, tens of thousands of data points per user. And those data points are things like they visited this website on this date and read about this thing. They searched this, which meant that they were intending to do that. We can connect their online behavior to data that we buy from these data companies that shows all of their credit card history and things that they purchase, and their age and their gender and their household income and the times of day that they search. And like I just gave you like 7 things, tens of thousands of data points per user. It's massive. Here's where people go wrong with PPC. They think it's all about keywords. Keywords don't matter as much as you think they do. Turns out all this other data is actually really, really predictive of if somebody's a motivated seller or not, in addition to what they search on Google. And also the things that they search are really predictive of that. So all these things come together to be really predictive. However, certain things will generate a much better quality lead than another. So the way that Google functions, and this is, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the world of AI and like what's happening. AI has become like wildly popular recently. The whole reason AI has become popular is because AI language models got pretty smart. And people are like, well, AI machines can like understand like English fairly well and communicate in English. The thing is, when it comes to numbers, AI has been better at that than us for like 10 years. Like AI, like computers are better with numbers than humans. Like it's just like very simple. So what happens is, well, as humans, we can like look at a few things, we can predict things. Google's like AI, it can look at those tens of thousands of data points, and it can learn from that which people are likely to be a motivated seller and which ones aren't. The way that works is that when you achieve success in your campaigns, you give that feedback back to Google. It's equivalent of like giving Google a high five and saying like, you know, that person you just got me there, that person turned into a lead on my website. And then Google looks at that with all of its tens of thousands of data points in that person that says, well, these things are kind of correlating across these people. And we're going to start doubling down on some of these things and find a way to generate more of these motivated seller leads. So that's like the basics of how this AI works. And it's intense. Like, so what you tell it you want has a massive, massive impact on what you get. Like if you just told it you want clicks, what you'll notice is you just have a flood of clicks, like more clicks than you could ever imagine. If you tell it you want leads, then your clicks go like way, way down. But now suddenly you're getting clicks from the type of people who are actually going to convert into leads on your website because it has a different goal and it's finding the people who can accomplish that goal. The problem is most marketers stop at leads, but they don't communicate to Google the things that happen beyond that. Like, was the lead spam or not? Is it listed on the market? Is this a qualified opportunity? Does the person have motivation?
You mean like actually like giving the feedback to Google?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So this is what you do. You take like Google, where most marketers are just feeding it. Most marketers, what they do, like horrible marketers don't give it any feedback. Good marketers give it feedback on like, these are what the people that turn into leads. Great marketers give it feedback on things that are deeper in the funnel than just leads. So then Google starts to learn not just what can get us the most leads, but what can get us the most opportunities. And it starts to make those finer distinctions in the leads. Because, you know, like to Google, how different does a retail seller versus a motivated seller look? If it doesn't get trained on the difference, it doesn't know the difference. It's just like real estate.
Yeah.
This is real estate. It doesn't know. But if you start to give those distinctions, I'll give you an example. I don't know if you have kids, Al. I have two.
No.
One is she's like 4 weeks old, and then the other one's like 2.5. But because I was thinking about this the other day, I saw a picture of her like at the beach when she was like 1 year old. It was in Florida. It was the first time she had ever been to the beach. So she went to the beach and she's like holding the sand. And I thought like a year ago she didn't know what sand was. So then I thought like, well, what was different about her a year ago versus now? A lot of people say it's the data. Like that's what you need. Like you need the input. You need to know like which list they're on and blah blah blah. Her eyes, actually, a year ago, they saw the same thing that they see now. Because that's how eyes work. But now, when she sees the sand, instead of just seeing a bunch of pixels, she sees that's sand. So why does she have the same input and not have a different output? That's the definition of learning. You get the same input, and now you have a different output from that same input. Like the same thing happens with Google, right? So it's just like seeing things, and it's just like, it doesn't know the difference between like a car and a truck until you like show it enough, like, hey, this one's a car and that one's a truck. And then the AI model starts to learn like those things are different and we really want trucks, not cars. And it starts to get you that. So I don't know how to explain it like super simply, but the AI is huge. It's very, very important. And what you feed it really matters. And most marketers aren't feeding it the right information for it to learn what kind of leads they want. So I have these people coming to me and they're like, I can't make my PPC campaigns work. They don't work. I keep on getting like all these leads that are listed on the market or whatever the case is. And then I look in their campaign, I'm like, every time you get a lead that's listed on the market, you're giving Google a high five and saying, good job, go get me more of those. And then you're getting frustrated when you're getting more of those. And it just doesn't make any sense. Is that
No, it makes
clear?
a lot of sense to me. Because I've seen the leads, like I'm like, I understand what it is. I've actually seen the leads myself. So it's like you have to take that additional step. Not only do you have to set this up, not only do you have to have like these different trial and error landing pages, and then of course, like in the back of your mind, think about the tens of thousands of data points that Google's like going through when getting these leads. But then you have to give the feedback, and then and it's like, you know, I don't know if this is true too, and you tell me, Brandon. It's like the longer that you do PPC and the longer that you keep paying Google, it rewards you. And eventually you start getting more quality leads. I don't know if that's true as well, but the feedback is going to be vital. I mean, I didn't know that. I thought you just like keep going and eventually like the key terms, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm probably like, just like all the other people that are like, let's just do key terms and we'll just get the leads in. But if you're not getting the right leads, you have to respond back and say, hey, wait a second. That's not it. This is not it. That's not it.
That's the more scientific way to do it. Yeah, so you stay on top of those things. Cause like just the fact that like, yeah, so with more time, does the algorithm learn? Yeah, but it depends on what you're teaching it. You got to be teaching it the right things, and then it's going to learn, and more data is definitely going to make the difference. But yeah, if you don't do that, then it's not going to learn over time. So that shows how like giving a PPC account plenty of time is a really good thing. But if you don't give it the right data, then it's not. And then one thing that we do is I wish I could like screen share and show you this now. There's like data in Google that shows you how much data is feeding your campaign's algorithm. So let's just say I started a campaign for you like yesterday, and you spent $100 on that campaign. If anybody else ran that campaign, I were to click in that campaign and ask Google like how much data is feeding this, it would say like $100 worth of spend data has fed this. If you're working with us, it would say $13.5 million is in the history of this campaign, yet your campaign just launched yesterday. And how is that possible? We have arrangements with Google where we borrow data from other accounts to push into like newer accounts. So you can curb that process a little bit. Like that shows some of the value of working with an agency. That's really, really cool. And that's an example of something we're doing that like you won't find like most agencies in any industry doing this, because it only works if you had a bunch of accounts that all are looking for like the exact same type of lead. But that's exactly what we have in this industry, is a bunch of accounts from a whole bunch of different areas looking for the exact same type of lead. So that, just to like expand on what you're talking about, like yes, ramp up is really important, but starting out like a mile ahead of everybody else is a big advantage when it comes to that.
And I don't know if this ties into something that you definitely wanted to talk about, which is how are you tracking the success and communicating with the leads? I mean, I can see how tracking the success also can loop back into the feedback that you give Google on whether it's a good lead or not. But what are some of the best ways that you keep track of it? Like, is it just through the CRMs? Is it, spreadsheets? Is it doing follow-up tasks? I know there's a big challenge when it comes to, one, you get the lead in, but then definitely doing the follow up on it like right away, or like the conversion right away. What have you seen been the success with that?
Yeah, in terms of like how to manage leads, like that's a different story than like how do you feed the data to Google. Like you had mentioned, getting to leads quickly when it comes to these amount types of leads, like very important. Yeah. When it comes to like how we feed that data to Google, we give each one of our clients what we call a lead feedback sheet. It's a spreadsheet where we put all their leads. We actually have a custom database we built that'll launch probably tomorrow, actually, because our spreadsheet system was recently compared to the little engine that could, that eventually couldn't, with the number of leads that are in that system. So spreadsheets not the best place if anybody's wondering. But we give them the leads in there, and then they can disposition the leads within that sheet, saying like it was it was a good lead, it was a bad lead, etc. And there's a few advantages of that. Like one, we can pull that data into Google. Two, we can do analyses to see like where are the better leads coming from, where are the worst leads coming from. But three, an often overlooked thing, is then we know exactly what their data looks like. Because usually, like I can tell you how usually the relationship between like marketing agency and business works is the agency is like, well, how are the leads? And I was like, well, they're all retail, or they're all out of my market, or whatever the case is. The marketing agency is like, okay, I'll make these adjustments to fix it. When we're not using data to actually figure it out, we're using a lot of perceptions. If we can use data to figure it out, what we can do is we can use that data from the feedback to the leads and turn it onto a sales funnel. What we do with the sales funnel is we then have the data from all of our other clients. So we know out of 100 leads exactly how many of those should be spam, like to the 100th of a percentage. We know how many should be spam. We know how many should be wholesalers. We know how many should be people that you can never get on the phone. We know how many of those should convert into opportunities. And if they're not converting opportunities, why they shouldn't. And we know how many opportunities it should take for you to get a contract, et cetera. So we can take all that data and we can show you where exactly your numbers are different. Like, yeah, you say like you need more leads, but what's going on here is that you have 20 opportunities and you haven't gotten a single contract. And our average client takes 5.5 opportunities to get to a contract. That's our problem, right? So then you turn like this, I think of a funnel like this, like you put money in the top, you get money out of the bottom. And that's ultimately what most business owners care about. But what we don't realize is that like all those stages in the funnel, like if it's not working, it's got to be one of the stages in the funnel that's broken, or multiple of the stages in the funnel that's broken. And if you can use that data, if you actually have the quality benchmarks and you have the quality data from other companies with the same keywords, same landing pages, etc., then you can use that data to understand where exactly you are excelling or where exactly you're falling short. And that helps you make a pointed problem, a solvable problem. Instead of like, we have a bad return on investment, we have a bad lead contact rate. How can we fix that problem? And that helps us get really to the base of those things, so we can help give our clients that strategic direction. So I know there's like a little bit tangential, but just to give you an example of like how powerful it is to have all this data. And then I hold my team accountable to that data in that chart. So like, you'll never work with a marketing agency that's like, the people internally are being held accountable to your sales metrics. Like, that is so rare, but then it creates all this kind of innovation within the company of not just how do we get leads, but how do we get end results for our clients, instead of just being like, well, we give them the leads and they just couldn't close them. That's on them.
Right. I think what you're also really showing us is you can't just like set this up and then think that that's it. Right. Like, a lot of people are like, hey, I want, well, it's easy to start dialing phone numbers and doing the outbound marketing, call. Right. And then you get somebody and you go from there. But a lot of people think, oh, let's like try this and let's set this up and let's build landing page and do this. And then the leads come in and then it's like, what's next? And so all these points that you're raising just keep raising even more questions for me on like, how does this all work? Like, and it takes so much time to do it, but the quality is there. Like, that's the unique brilliance of inbound leads. It's like, the quality is there. Like, when you start seeing the inbounds come in, you're just like, whoa, what is this? Like, I'm even mind blown whenever I see one come in and I'm like, wait a second, like, somebody typed this question specifically for this. And it's all these factors that Brandon's talking about that are coming into play, whether the market, the terms, the feedback, and it's just going to take a lot of hands on. And that's why you just can't do it yourself. Like, you need a team, you need a specialist like a Brandon to come in and actually like walk you through that and get the team to really curate it for your purpose and what you're trying to go after. And a lot of people at first go, I just want leads, right? I'm sure they tell you, Brandon, I want to start doing inbound. And I'm sure at that point you're like, well, hold on a second. We got to make this very specific. What are you doing? Are you doing wholesaling? Are you doing retail? So there's a lot behind it. What have you seen the best teams doing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, outside of, because like you said, the reality is most people are going to work with some type of agency that's going to do a lot of what I'm talking about for them. Both because it takes a lot of time, but even beyond time, you need data to really succeed on those things. Like, you could be really, really smart, but if I have data about what kind of lead quality you can expect from different keywords that you don't have, I'm going to beat you like every single time with a PPC campaign, because you're going to spend your next $30,000 trying to figure out what I already know. So there's definitely a component of that. Now, when it comes to like, what do those teams do? I'll tell you one other advantage that we have with the system that we have, really caring how the funnel progresses. So there's a lot of people, as you know, that can talk a big talk. Everybody seems to be, in their mind, the best in this industry. And the unique advantage that we have is we can see who's actually the best and who's not, because we can see their data on how do they close and how do they make revenue from these leads. And spoiler, those who say they're the best are not always the best. There's a lot more to it than that. So I did this study recently, and what we did is we broke out all of our clients from a lead close rate adjusted to like how many leads were coming from different keywords, et cetera. We broke all those out into percentiles. So we looked at like the 90th percentile of closers. And then we also looked at like, what about those people who are like the 10th or the 20th or the 30th percentile of closers? And I actually had interviews with those in like the top and those in the bottom. And I talked to the business owners, I talked to sales managers, I talked to acquisitions team members, et cetera, just grilling them about like, what do you do? And what I looked for is not just like, because this is how people usually do it. It's like, well, this company works really well and they said they do this. But if all the companies that suck also do that, then that's not the real differentiator, right? So what I looked at is, what are the things that the best companies have in common that the worst companies don't do. Because those are the differentiators. Those are the things that like really make the difference here. And I'm sorry for like the incredibly long lead up to this, but there's 3 principles that are into this process. And the first one, you already said it actually, urgency. How quickly do you get to leads? It also applies in terms of how you get to appointments and stuff. Like, because PPC leads are the type where you like set an appointment for tomorrow and then you show up and the house is already sold.
Yeah.
Like they go fast sometimes. In our database right now, the median number of days between lead coming in and contract is 1.34. So can be very fast. Now, I think we do have some like lack of getting lead feedback data from our clients in the longer term. So I think it's a little bit skewed, but like it can happen fast. It certainly does happen fast sometimes. And if you're on your follow-up game, you'll get some later too. But urgency with these leads, our gold standard is 60 seconds or less to contact new leads.
Really?
Yeah.
60 seconds or less.
Yeah, it's really, really fast. Because here's the thing, like you got to realize like there's a lot of money. Like we calculate like revenue per lead for a lot of our best clients, and revenue per lead is like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. So you have to think like the phone rings, that's worth $2,000. Does that mean you should get to it in 10 minutes? Probably not. I'll explain exactly why this is important. Like, let's just say you go to Google. Are you going to have a hard time finding a wholesale company on Google? No, you're going to type in a keyword and you're going to get a whole list of me and all of my competitors right there at your fingertips. What are you likely to do? You're likely to contact multiple of them. So let's just say I contact your company first and then I go to the second one. If you were to call me quickly, you can stop me in my tracks before I go reach out to all those other companies. Does that make sense? So a lot of people assume that this is about the patience of the seller. It's not about the patience of the seller. This is about eliminating competition. It's about getting to the seller before anybody else does. You know, the way that all of us make decisions, like I laugh when people tell me they're like logical people. To me, that means they're like 85% emotional compared to like the 95% emotional that most people are. You know, it's like none of us are logical. Like we can't say that we're logical. So what we do is like in your heart and in your mind, you kind of decide you want to do something, and then you look for logical reasons for that. So that's why it's important that like you got to be the first person that talks to them, and you got to make it so they don't talk to other people too. And that increases your rate of like closing the lead really significantly because it cuts away a lot of the competition. It also allows you to make a good impression faster. And a lot of people, they're like actively searching. They have that pain right now. Maybe in 30 minutes they don't, and they get busy or something like that. So urgency is huge. Any thoughts, questions on urgency?
Yeah, I just can't believe the timing that you mentioned. That's really crazy. I mean, I've seen a PPC lead come in and it's like you reach out to them a day later and they could already be gone, right? They're already with someone else, right? So, I think it's like when you really see that I think at least my perspective is, especially when you see that real quality lead come in, immediately hit it, right? If you see something, maybe there's an incoherent sentence or, maybe there's just like a little typing or doesn't make sense. Maybe you don't want to reach out, who knows? But especially when you get that one that it's like, wow, like I've even seen, I'm like, wow, that is really legit. Hit it. Boom, done, right? Because they could be gone in a flash, and the urgency has to be there. I wanted to even ask like best tips on converting inbound marketing leads. I think you pretty much answered it, which is you got to hit them right away. Once that thing comes in, snap, go. But that's really interesting. Brandon, let me ask you this too. Ad spend increases. Like, how often do you bump up the ad spend? Like, let's just say for 3 months, you keep it at $1,000 for those 3 months each. At what point do you start tinkering with the ad spend and just increasing it or bumping it up to 2,000 or 3,000? Like, where's the fine line with the ad spend increase?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's going to be a little bit different per market. Because let's just say you're in a really small market, your ceiling is going to be lower than, like, let's just say you're national, you could spend like a couple million easy a month. So it's super different. What I would say is be familiar with the concept of diminishing marginal returns, which exists with all marketing channels. If you're a good marketer, if you're a bad marketer, you start by like doing some, like imagine I'll compare it to direct mail just because most people understand direct mail. Imagine you're like you're mailing the bad list, and then when you get more budget, you have to find more lists, and you find a better list. Then you start mailing that. So then like your results get all better. Well, it's because you're a bad marketer to begin with. The best marketers though, they'll start with the best list, and then when they add more budget, they're like, oh, I've already mailed that list. Now I have to mail a new list. And ideally, that's the second best list, and then you get to the third best, etc. Right? Same thing kind of happens with PPC. So and also you have to pay more for the same stuff because you got to bid more because you want to win a higher percentage of the auctions to spend the budget that you want. So like I have people on my team that have worked with businesses spending literally in this industry. We have one across 2 markets spending $1 million a month on PPC, and that's a volume game. Like you're paying an insane cost per lead, and you're doing an insane number of deals, and you run thinner margins, but you do a lot of volume in your business. And then you have like the smaller budget where you're looking more for efficiency. You're looking to kind of find just the right priced clicks and that sort of thing. So there's no right answer to like where you should be there. There is a profit maximizing point, which is usually the volume game, but not everybody wants to play the volume game. So how I think about it is like I try to start a campaign from an ad spend standpoint as high on budget as I can go, but it has to be a burn rate that I'm comfortable with, because at the beginning it's an expense until it turns into an investment, right? So like if you want to spend 30 grand a month on PPC, but you only have 30 grand, like it's not going to work out, right? Like 1 month you're out. So I would say like generally like outline, 6 months of runway, and then start burning out of that. Most commonly our clients are starting out between 5 and 20 grand a month in ad spend for a PPC.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it depends on who you are. Like some people in this, like for our clients, that's normal, but we also work with like higher volume real estate investors than the average. So, because ultimately PPC, it's a pay to play game, and it is usually the more sophisticated, higher marketing budget companies that succeed the most because they can stick it out. And, if you got like $2,000 and you have to get a deal with your 2 grand, like it's not your channel at all. So it's, usually we'd start like somewhere between like 5 and 20 grand to start. And then what you do is you just burn it for a little bit, and then you get success. And what happens after success is everybody wants to like hit the gas, like, oh, we're going 40, 50 grand a month. Don't do that yet. Next, you have to sustain that success for a period of time, gather more sample size, allow the cash conversion cycle to come full circle, et cetera. And then you start to scale it. And usually you're scaling it like 20, maybe up to 50% each month, until you start to hit those limits in your diminishing returns. You don't have the capacity in your acquisitions team or whatever the case is. So that's like a really common path for our clients to take. But where they end up and where they start, like it's totally all over the place. We take clients as low as 2 grand a month. That's our like absolute floor. And like I said, 5 to 20 is normal.
I can't even imagine what kind of quality leads you get with 20,000 a month. But then at the same time, the amount of inbound leads that you get, you definitely have to have the infrastructure to handle that as well. Because it sounds great. Let's just pump $20,000 in and all these things come. But then, like Brandon's saying, you got to hit it. You got to hit it right away. It's like you have to have a team set up dedicated to the response right there. And if you're not doing that right away, you can lose out big time. And then it's a waste of money on the leads if you don't have that structure. Brandon,
100%.
let me ask you this. My team had a great question on this, which is how often are you tweaking the keywords and verbiage when you're doing the PPC?
Yeah, how often are you tweaking it? So here's kind of how I feel about that. Now, sometimes people correlate PPC success with just like making a lot of changes. That's not at all true. It's the bias that most of our clients have though, where they're just like, I just want you guys to be like doing lots of stuff all the time. And that's just not like a good business strategy overall. Like what you want to do is you want to like every change that you make in PPC runs a risk of resetting the algorithm a little bit, and then you have to recover from that. So that doesn't mean you don't make changes. It means you got to be like surgical with your changes, like sniper, not shotgun, when you make changes, which means that you want to gather data that supports that you need to make that change. And then as soon as you have that data that tells you need to make that change, you make that change, and then you don't make another change until you then have data telling you you need to make another change. Like that's how like a disciplined marketer approaches PPC. And it's a lot more successful than just like every time I feel like my leads slow down, I start to just change a bunch of stuff, which is what I find a lot of people self-managing do. So the answer to that is, as soon as you have statistical significance that tells you that one thing or a different thing isn't performing as well, then you change it. Now, how long that takes depends on how granular your data is segmented, and it depends on how much volume you're pushing. But that's our rule of thumb, is that like as soon as there is enough data to statistically say that ad A works better than ad B, then we're going to cut ad B and we're going to add in ad C, which is our new contender to ad A. And then give it some time, run the stats. Now we find that ad C works better than ad A, and we have enough statistical significance for that to be true. Cut ad A, add in ad D, and you just keep on doing that process over and over and over again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's a science. This is definitely a science,
Yeah.
and you got to play around with this. And I think it's a fascinating niche, marketing method. I do. At first, like when I saw it, I'm like, what is this? Like, just do this and set this up and let them flow, and then you start seeing that you got to get some real tweaking in there, right? At first, the algorithm's not going to know exactly what you're going after, and then you got to start fixing it and plug and play and experimenting with it. And I get it. It's a lot. And that's why there's people like you out there that help the investors, realtors, and the other industries focus on that, which is just amazing. Um, but before we get to the signature questions and stuff, I want to just go through some of the comments. Joe Roig, the greats watching. I love it. I saw this right there. Joe, what are we going after? PPC, land? What's going on over here? I love it. He said, what were the three? Urgency. And he said, what's 2 and 3? He said urgency, and what were they?
Yeah, I'll give the quick answer on this one, because we started talking about urgency and then we just moved on. I teased that there were 3 things and I just never said 2 or 3. Yeah, urgency, huge. The second one is called assuming motivation. And the most simple, quick explanation for that is the fact that the person reached out to you is their motivation. Where we see people going wrong with PPC leads is they're screening them on the phone, like, oh, this person wants 600 grand for their house, and I only think that it's worth 550. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to pursue this lead or something, which is normal for you to do with cold call because you're looking for the diamond in the rough. So the standard with most outbound marketing channels is that you assume that a lead is unmotivated until they can prove to you that they are motivated. The standard with inbound channels is you assume that they are motivated until you can absolutely prove that they are not. What that means is you just go on every appointment that you could possibly go on. Does that make sense for number 2, like roughly?
Yeah.
Ad qualification standards is how I would summarize it. And then number 3 is quality first impressions. And what I mean by this is you have the right person reaching out to the lead. Like I just talked to a client last week where 40% of their PPC deals are 1 call closes on the very first call. And yet we have people like with VAs calling the leads right away. So here's another way to think of it. Like, you've heard the concept, I'm sure, like every action that you take in your business has like a certain dollar per hour. Like, oh, if I'm just, doing paperwork, and that's worth however many dollars per hour. But if I'm, strategizing, it's worth this, etc. So I would argue that there's very few higher dollar per hour activities in a business than the first call to a PPC lead that just came in. Yet, most people would pay their janitor literally more money than they would pay the person calling that lead. And it's like the lifeblood of their business is right there. So the concept with this is like, usually you want leads going directly to somebody who can close, or if they're just a lead manager, they're a really good lead manager. They're generally not, not like a lower quality, like they can dig into motivation and stuff like that. Because what happens, how I talked about how, that first impression, like when you first talk to the person, matters in terms of how you view the competition. Like, so many people think that the contract is won when it's signed. That's not true, though. The contract is won at the point that you talk to the seller and they decided emotionally if they're going to work with you, which could be far before they actually signed a contract, because they needed the logical piece to come through. So you got to have somebody who can talk to them, and who could be the kind of person makes them feel like, look, I don't have a number from Al. Like, I don't know for sure he's going to buy my house, but like, I like this guy. He's going to take really good care of me. And I feel like he's got my back. And I just don't feel like I need to talk to anybody else except for Al, because Al just feels like he's my guy. Like, you need that person on the phone. And if you don't have that person on the phone, it's not clear that that's what the problem is. It's just like, oh, we're just, the leads don't seem good. But you get the right person and that's not the problem anymore.
Yeah. I legit had a call like that today. That literally was what was
It
said.
happens.
And I was like, wow, that was easy, right?
Yeah.
But you're
I bet
right.
you it was an inbound call.
No, I don't know what I think it was just a referral, but it's just,
That's inbound.
it's just crazy, right? Like it's
Yeah.
when you have that trust with people, just being able to talk about the issues and what they're going through, and they have that like, hey, like we're not going anywhere else, we're going straight to you. That's what you want. That's the gold right there. Joe,
Mhm.
thanks for asking that. It was we got the micro from that. And Teresa, always love watching Teresa on here. Teresa was talking about I think some of the things in the beginning that was the golden nugget when it came to focusing on the markets, right? Like what market are you going to? Oh, and how Google is going to send you the leads in the market that people aren't going to versus where everybody else
Mhm.
is. So good, really good stuff there. And Joe said, wow, super interesting. Thanks for the info. Hey, Joe, when you do it, you do land keywords, land probate, right? There we go. Boom. I love it. And let's see, Kevin's watching, Dan the man's watching. Love it. Wow. Dan, you're getting a whole dose of PPC leads. I love it. He's going to get some PPC leads now. He's going to set the whole thing up. Teresa, Lupa, I don't know what's going on there, but we got people watching and listening all over. Brandon, everybody's on, and whether they're listening now or later, they'll catch it, and it's just really good stuff overall. So I do a segment at the end called signature questions right now, and I got 3 just for you. I haven't even done them yet. These are brand new. Nobody's been asked this, and you ready?
Hey, we'll see. We'll see if I can talk about anything other than PPC for real estate investors, unless it's that exact.
All right.
Let's
What
go
was
for it, Al.
what was the worst deal you've had, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, shoot, the worst deal I've had. Well, because I'm not a real estate investor, so I'm different.
But
Um,
maybe a client, maybe a situation, maybe something. What was like the worst situation?
yeah, let's yeah, there's always a few tricky situations. Let me kind of think of like, and maybe this is good for like anybody listening that wants to work with an agency. I can tell you expectations are huge. And most of our worst problems come through just the wrong expectations. So like we try to tell people like to come to us and we're just like, look, you got to give this 6 months, it's gonna take some time. And then like after 2 weeks, someone's like, I didn't get as many leads as I thought I was going to get from this marketing channel. This marketing channel doesn't work, and they just want to quit. Really common issue with PPC. And the thing that kind of sucks about PPC is you're going to pay like some type of cost to set it up, and then you're going to pay some type of management fee, and then you're going to like waste some ad spend at the beginning, like in some learning process. And then after all that stuff, that's when it starts to get good. And so many people just like want to cut it right after all the bad before they actually get to the good. It's like trying to start a business and going through like all the work of starting it and grinding on it for 3 months, and then if it's not profitable after 3 months, just getting rid of the business. Like you don't do that unless you learn it's like not the business you want to be in. So I'd say like a lot of a lot of our worst situations are surrounding like expectations. We try to do a good job of like keeping it up front, but sometimes people just like they're like, oh, okay, yeah, and then 2 weeks later they're like angry if they don't have enough leads or something like that. Like you have to write it out. Like our clients that are most successful, like they have highs, they have lows, and your highs and your lows average together and they make average times. And that's how a business wins with like really boring, consistent results over the long term.
Yeah, just keep it flowing, keep it consistent, and leave it there,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can tweak it from there. Hey, that was a
Totally.
great answer. What are the top 3 mobile apps that you use for your business?
Oh, this one's interesting. Mobile app. Do I even use mobile apps for my business?
Or
Like
maybe
I don't.
software, and you can go any
I'll
direction.
answer software. Yeah, I don't even know if I use mobile apps, but yeah, software. I could tell you like big software for us, like HubSpot, CRM, a lot of that kind of stuff. All project management we do in Monday. Um, love Monday. Uh, One that I'll give that's like been amazing recently. We use a tool called Fathom. That's like there's a version of it that's free actually. That is like an AI note taker for like Zoom calls or Google Meet or something like that. And it's killer for us because like we never have like salespeople taking the right notes on their calls. And turns out all we do is just put an AI recorder and it takes like good AI notes and then everybody knows what's going on. And it can like make it so like if I tell you on the call, like, okay, I'll do that, then it automatically creates a task for me in HubSpot to do that. So we have like minimal like leaking. I'm not creating tasks for things. It makes it easy to like, for our managers to review the quality of the calls that people are having in the company with different people. It makes it super fast and easy to see like what was discussed with this client in the past. Super cool. And it's free. And yeah, I even use it, like it goes to meetings that I don't go to go take notes for me. And then I just read the notes after. So it's cool.
I've never even heard of Fathom. That's the first time.
Yeah, it's sweet.
I mean, there's Fireflies and all those other programs, but sounds like this is pretty accurate. Cool. I got to check that out now. Brandon, what would you say are the biggest challenges you face in your business? I know you kind of dropped it in the first question a little bit on expectations, but what are some of the other challenges that you face?
Is there all of the above?
There could be an all of
Option?
the above. There could be, you can go wherever you want with this.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like internal, external, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm kind of at a point in my business where more of the problems that I deal with are internal than external. Because like you reach like a certain team size where that's true.
Yeah.
And internally, like probably the biggest challenges that I face, like keeping a really good, consistent recruiting pipeline is just straight up difficult. Like we have one position, for example, that's so hard to recruit for. We have like literally 7 recruiters working on it right now. And I've got like one VA who's just trying to find applicants for it. And it's slow and it's hard to recruit and find like people that match like our quality standards. That's always been like my biggest challenge is just like finding the right people to come onto the team and like hiring them. And yeah, so that probably, I'd probably say that's like longest running consistent challenge for me.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper there. This is not even on my list. What do you look for in new hires?
Now that's a hard one too. I mean, here's what I've learned is each position is a little bit different, and you start to learn over time like how those are different than like you think they were at the beginning. It's kind of like you ever started making pancakes and then you kind of burn the first one. You're like, ooh, it was a little burnt, and then you learn your lesson, and then the next one's not as burnt. Like I feel like we do that in every department with like certain positions. Like the first person we bring in, we're like, oh, burnt down a little bit. Let's look for a different kind of person next time. Turn the heat down a little bit. Like whatever we got to do. But I can tell you like the basic process that we use for hiring. We're mostly doing outbound hiring, believe it or not. So we're like cold calling people and trying to convince them to work for us for like higher level positions. We do a few things. First screen is with predictive index. Are you familiar with the predictive index?
Yeah. A lot of people talk about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty useful. So there's 2 components of predictive index. There's going to be a personality profile, and we're looking for certain traits that mean that someone will be like more naturally inclined to excel in certain aspects of their job. And we pattern those based on like our people who are our best performers, and we try to find more people like those people. So we do that, and then there's also a cognitive assessment, which shows like how quickly generally people can learn and understand things, which is really helpful. Like for us, because all of our roles are so technical, like we need like we had a business consultant come on with us and they're like, I've never seen a company with such high cog scores across the board. Like everybody we have is like 90th percentile for like cognitive ability. It's just because it just needs to be that way, like for the demands of what we have. So those are the initial filters. Beyond that, there's a lot of like culture fit stuff. Like we have our core values. We try to hire people that fit those core values, and then previous job experience, and have they done like the right things that mean that they'll excel here. That doesn't matter for every position. That matters especially for more senior level positions, which we have some of, and those are the harder ones to recruit for in general. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Like those are the big things for us. It's culture, past experience, and we'll like grill them on their past experience. Like I won't hire a sales guy that wasn't in the top 10% of his previous sales organization. It's just not worth the time, because you deal with like the people who suck at sales are 90%, you know, that's a
Yeah.
lot of people. Like, I don't think I'm like a judge of that. I'll just see, do they perform well somewhere else, right? So it's like past experience, and it's culture fit and it's personality match, which means that hopefully they won't burn out.
Yeah. I definitely can see the culture fit, right? You're looking for somebody that's going to believe in the team's message and what everybody, the standard everybody needs to follow. Because anybody that comes after them follows that standard and it's expected of them as well. So culture is definitely huge. And I liked what you talked about with the predictive index. So there's a lot of people, investors that have teams that use that. It didn't sound like a lot of people used that in the beginning, but as the team grew and scaled, it was like you, in order to find that right fit for that right role and that right personality, you have to start using a lot of these metrics and systems. So I think it's fascinating. I'm sure we could dive deeper even on that part alone. Like, just there's the whole Google PPC side, and then there's like
Yes.
scaling and building a team and the internal structure of what that's like. It's fascinating. Brandon, a lot of
Mhm.
great stuff. There's so much to unpack when it comes to PPC and being able to refine it, be able to leverage it, be able to understand what markets to go to, what markets not to go to, how to pick that market, um, the mistakes not to make. You don't want to you don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over and getting
Mhm.
that feedback. So much great info that I learned. I know a lot of people will learn. I definitely learned tonight. So thank you for sharing all that. It's great, great stuff. I love it. And as I do at the end of the Al Nicoletti show, I do a segment called Final Words, Final Thoughts. Anything that is on your mind we haven't talked about or we did talk about, it's your moment to really make that impact at the end. So as I do, final words, final thoughts, Brandon Bateman.
Ooh, putting some pressure on. Final thoughts. I didn't save the best for last. I just tried to get it out as quickly as I could. Um, I'd say, like, when it comes to, like, if I were to just kind of boil, because we talked about like a lot of details and all that kind of stuff about PPC. Like, if I were to boil this down to, like, how do you succeed with PPC? Like, rule number one: give it a healthy enough budget. Ideally, somewhere in that 5 to 20 grand a month range. You could go a little bit lower depending on your circumstances. Work with somebody who can help you work through that and figure out where you want to be. Two, give it the time. Don't be the person that's like trying to day trade your marketing. Like, this is a buy and hold strategy. That's the only way it works. Three, do everything you possibly can on your side and follow the advice of whoever you work with diligently to make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can. And then four, just work with the right company that can figure out all that other stuff that technically you don't really need to know. You just have to know that you're working with the right company and they're going to strategically advise you and help you see the things that you couldn't see otherwise. Like, so I know we can talk about a bunch of stuff, but if you just like focus on those four things, then you can have success with this channel. And if you're at a point in your business where inbound makes sense, meaning like financially you're doing well, but you're looking for ways to have a lower number of leads per deal within the business so that you can scale more simply and you can increase your volume, that's where PPC fits really, really well. And a lot of investors love it for that.
Love it. We're going to leave it right there. Brandon, so much valuable information, golden nuggets, things that people can expand on when they want to do more inbound marketing with PPC, Facebook ads, you name it. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this valuable stuff. I really appreciate it. And for everybody that doesn't know, this is what Brandon does. Like, this is this is the company. They specialize on inbound marketing for real estate investors. I'm sure different parts of real estate, and they're driving the leads in. They're having great success. Like, Brandon works with some really big people and he's driving a lot of leads in for these people, and they're scaling. They have teams all over. So we've been putting up the chyrons. We've been putting up the info. You got his info right at the bottom. So Brandon, thanks so much, man. I'm sure you didn't even expect it was going to be like this whole opener and ending and all the questions. And I gave you the whole shebang right there.
It's a great experience, Al. Love the show. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thanks, Brandon. Hey, I'll see you at Family real soon, man. It's going to be a blast when we're there.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Sounds good, man. Thanks again for coming on. I'll see you soon. All right. All right, everybody. Look at that. A masterclass on Google PPC, pay-per-click, inbound marketing, a very different channel when it comes to trying to get leads, right? A lot of people want to do the cold call, direct mail, and sure, that's working for a lot of investors. Direct mail with land, cold call, yeah, probably with land too, but even like cold call with houses, multifamily. I mean, people are using all sorts of outbound, but I don't know if people are really seeing the value of inbound. However, with inbound, you got to do it right. You got to set up your landing pages. You got to set up what you're targeting, what you're going after, your markets. And I'll say, like, it takes a long time to get things set up, and it takes a long time to see the results come in and get better. But the quality of leads that eventually you're going to start seeing is really good. But you got to convert it. And then you got to have the systems on that. And then you got to have that back end, right? And it's just so much from this episode that we can all take from and expand and grow and use in our business. And I love the interaction. Joe, I mean, we love it there, right? Like, we love when people are paying attention when they're seeing this stuff, because you want to learn. And that's the kind of stuff we want from the audience. You want to learn, ask questions, engage. That's what we want to hear about. And you saw Brandon's info. If you have any questions on that, or you're interested in that kind of service, reach out to him. These are the kind of guests we want to bring on that are providing that value to you all out there. So I hope you all enjoyed. Scan the QR code right there, and you'll find us all on the social apps. And we're going to keep on rolling with the Al Nicoletti Show. And next week, another one in the books. Angela Langlotz is going to come on. She's an attorney that gets into a lot of the IP stuff when it comes into what you need to know for your business and brand, and really different kind of stuff. And we'll dive in on that. But it's another night on the Al Nicoletti Show. It probably could go until 3:00 in the morning at this point. Feel that energy. And we'll see y'all next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll see y'all there. Have a great night, everybody. Take